Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Claire. You guessed it. We're gonna talk about the premiere, the long anticipated first episode of season 8 of Game of Thrones. So I think I'm gonna be doing this every week. I think I'm gonna try live streaming next week's episode. So we'll see how that goes. I've never live streamed before, but stay tuned, I guess, after the episode and see if I'm there. But if you like this kind of content, make sure to subscribe because that really helps me out the most, as well as liking and commenting your opinions about the episode down below. Let's get started. So I think what's going to be easiest is if I do the good, the bad, and the dead. In case you don't know, I've only read part of the first book, but otherwise I'm just a show watcher and I'm a fan. I also have a few videos on like the topic of Game of Thrones as well, so I'll link that playlist down below. Okay, but let's start with the good, or at least what I consider good. Obviously this is arbitrary and these are just elements that I'm drawn to or that I really don't like. Your opinions may vary. I really like the opening scene of Jon and Dany and all of her Unsullied and Dothraki coming into Winterfell, and that mirroring Robert's army and the Lannisters coming in the first episode of the first season. I also really loved, in a very like heartbreaking way, when Jon saw Bran and he's so warm and he kisses Bran's forehead and there's just like so much happiness and joy, and then Bran being a weirdo about it, but in a way that like really touched me. Like it almost, not quite, but almost brought me to tears, because we know Bran pretty much isn't a character anymore. He's a three-eyed raven now. Jon doesn't know that, and so Jon discovering that he's kind of lost another sibling is really tragic, and I almost wish they played that up a little bit more. Jon thinks it's weird, but then they kind of move on, and I feel like that would be a much bigger deal to Jon than they played it. I kind of liked that this episode was a little bit slower pace, kind of a calm before the storm. I definitely have some friends that do not like that felt that it should have been way more action-packed or way more a stunner of a premiere. And this was a lot more subdued. It was a lot of kind of like setting up the chessboard, setting the pieces into play. I like that about Game of Thrones, that it's willing to kind of slow down and set things up before knocking everything out. Man, I'm such a Stark. I love that Winterfell was just so distrustful and hated Dany, because I feel that. I definitely feel the position that Jon is in, because on one hand, Dany sucks, and then on the other hand, they desperately need her armies and especially her dragons if they want to survive as a human race. But I'm glad that there seems to be so much internal opposition to her, and they don't even know how much of a monster she kind of is, which, like, a little of a detour right here. I watched it with a group of friends and we stayed and watched until like the after credits, when the showrunners kind of talk about their thoughts on the show or like what they were doing or whatever. And that actually severely confused me, because I felt like the episode was really playing up people distrusting and disliking Dany, and Dany saying things that kind of made her look like a monster. Like you have the whores that Bronn was with, and them talking about like all these men that they really loved getting burned alive by these dragons. Like everyone in Winterfell being scared of her and distrusting her. You have Sansa making excellent points that the show completely pushes to the side about, like, hey, we don't have enough food for all these people, and what do dragons eat? And they kind of end the scene with Dany and her snarky comment like, whatever they want. And then they just move along like that's not the craziest thing anybody's ever heard. Like, whatever they want. They get to eat my cattle. They get to eat my children. Like, I would feel like everyone else in that room would just be like, what do you mean? But they just kind of went along like that wasn't horrifying and something a crazy person would say. The point is, I actually really like the idea of Dani kind of like dipping her toes into this Mad Queen territory and John kind of reluctantly allowing it to happen because he loves her and because he needs her. But everyone else kind of being like, John, wake up, she's crazy. But the showrunners were kind of giving me a different vibe. They were definitely did not seem to see it in that way. I mean, you should definitely check out their commentary for that episode and like tell me if I'm reading into it wrong. I kind of was into the jump scare with the kid staked to the wall, the kid being burned alive, and the screams were horrific. I like that Game of Thrones is ballsy enough to show child deaths on screen, but as like a normal person, I hate it. It is so disturbing, but that is the point. And it definitely gave me that like, oh my God, what's coming to them is horrifying and they are not prepared. So let's get into the bad. I'm putting this under the bad, and it's not as if it was really terrible. It just didn't hit the mark for me, and that was Arya and John's interaction, which I just felt like should have made me bawl my eyes out, considering how much they loved each other and their connection to each other at the beginning of the show, and how it's like they're kind of the outsiders of the family, and now they're coming back together. Like, John and Sansa last season, when they met, I wept. And it's like John and Sansa don't even like each other or didn't like each other. And so this should have just been like amplified. But I wish the scene played out longer, and I wish there was just more emotion there. I felt like one of them should have cried, and if one of them started crying, then I would have started crying. It's not that what they talked about was bad, because it wasn't. I actually liked that Arya is on Sansa's side in a way that really surprises Jon, but also kind of like puts a lot of pressure on Jon. That kind of stuff isn't bad. I just didn't quite hit it for me, and that was character interaction that I was really looking forward to, so it was kind of a shame that it didn't like. I like that Sansa at the end of her and Tyrion's interaction basically calls out Tyrion for being an idiot for even possibly trusting Cersei. Speaking of which, Cersei and, I don't even remember his name, Theon's uncle, and her getting together, I don't hate nor do I love. I don't know what's going to come of it. She looked pretty pathetic when she turns back towards him and he's kind of like, this is my chance. And she just looks like she's in pain. But I don't know what's going to come of their coupling now. And so, you know, I'm just kind of like, push that aside. We'll see what happens in later episodes. Oh, Jon and Dany's dragon ride. We are pressed for time. We have 6 episodes total, and yeah, they're gonna be a little bit longer. This felt like such weird filler to me. I would rather take all those like precious seconds that are given on this like weird dragon ride simulation and give towards Jon and Sansa or Jon and Arya, rather than watching the CGI dragons maneuver themselves. That's not particularly impressive to me. If you have been on my channel for a minute, you know how I feel about like excessive CGI. And although the dragons, especially when they're not near people, look magnificent, like there is absolutely no denying how cool they look, the second real people get involved, their proximity to real people instantly makes them look fake. And also watching these like computer generated animals move around is not, it's just not that cool to me. It's not like a battle scene where you're watching real people have to do this like really complicated choreographed fight scene. That's impressive. And then that thing at the end where they started making out and the dragon is like weirdly transfixed on them, and then Dany's like, don't be afraid. It's like, is he afraid or is he just weirded out? Does that happen to you often? Why aren't you weirded out? That's weird, especially since you consider them your children. Oh, going back to the good, because there are like several things I forgot. Really liked the exchange between Dany and Sam, especially Sam and the way he handled the news of his father and his brother's death. Thought he did a great job of being like horrified and devastated, but almost like he can't show it in front of her, and her kind of being like, maybe That was a dick move. And then Sam telling John about his heritage. I liked that scene, but it definitely kind of has heightened my anxiety for future episodes. That really needs to go somewhere. That really needs to cause a rift between him and Danny, or him and his sisters, or like there needs to be something that comes of it now that he knows. And then I can't believe I left out the best part of the episode by far, and that was the last scene. No dialogue. Jamie, you don't even see his face at first, coming into Winterfell. He like comes in, he looks kind of ragged, and then just eye contact with Bran, and then done. Whoa. That is so good. It seems like that where I'm like, oh, Game of Thrones, you were at your best. I'm anxious to also see what happens with that, because that is also an exchange between two characters at least I have been looking forward to forever. And obviously Bran's not Bran anymore, so that changes things. I am so excited. But overall, I thought this episode was pretty solid. I have some friends that think it should have been more exciting, especially since this is the last season. So they're kind of like, ooh, every episode should be a banger. And I don't mind these quieter, more character-driven, setting up the future conflicts. I think with a story this big, we need episodes like this. Do I wish the dialogue in places was a little bit better? Yes. Do I wish scenes with certain characters was a little bit more emotionally resonant? Absolutely. But that being said, I think this episode, if I were to rate it out of a 10, 10 being perfection, 1 being trash, I would probably give this a 6, maybe a 6.5 at places. Oh, and the dead. I guess I forgot about it because no one really died except that little boy, which was shocking. Did anyone else die? No, I guess no one else died. But if we're just gonna rate the death scene, that's like 8.5, 8.7. I love the grotesque symbolism, haunting and horrible, but extremely effective. All right, guys, let me know how you feel about the episode down in the comments below. Also, let me know if you're into this live streaming idea rather than these formal sit-down videos, or if you want both. I don't know what I'm doing. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and to subscribe. That is the absolute best way to help me and my channel out. And I will see you guys next time. Bye.